Can your doctor force you or withhold treatment if you refuse to be hospitalized? Well, not if you're capable of decision making, she can't. But let's dig into this a little bit more. I'm a physician and anaesthetist. I teach in Geneva, and not wanting to go into hospital is not that rare. There are costs attached to being in hospital. There are representations attached to it. You may not live close to the hospital. There are many reasons why people might prefer to be cared for at home. Although frequently when hospitalization is recommended, it is because it is clearly in the patient's best interest, and you should at least take the recommendation seriously. So there are basically two kinds of situation where a doctor can force you to go into a hospital, and both of these are exceptions to what is a very clear rule. The rule being that we belong to ourselves, or at least we belong to no one else, and if we are capable of decision making and properly informed, we get the last word about what happens to us. That is the basis for requiring informed consent for any medical procedure, including admission to hospital. However, if you have a very dangerous, contagious disease, you may be confined into quarantine. Public health authorities have that power in many parts of the world, as they should, because you can't just leave an Ebola victim to run around and do their thing if that's just what they want and infect a whole bunch of other people with a very highly lethal disease. I live in Switzerland. We don't have Ebola at this time. We have tuberculosis, however, and we don't let people who are actively contagious with tuberculosis run around. If we identify them, we place them in quarantine, and they don't have a say of whether or not to stay in the hospital. What they have a say about is whether or not to take treatment. But of course, because the treatment means they will stop being contagious faster and can go home, they accept the deal usually. They take the treatment and then they go home when they're no longer contagious. And a doctor can admit someone into a psychiatric hospital if they are dangerous to themselves or others. And that, of course, is important as well. In that case, though, the patient is not going to be capable of decision-making. Because someone who is being violent and is capable of decision-making, they go with the police, not with the psychiatrist. Now, the other part of the question is trickier. Can a doctor withhold treatment if you refuse to be hospitalized? It sort of depends on the treatment, right? Because some treatments can be administered at home and others cannot. I mean, in theory, it could be somebody's preference to have their appendix taken out on their kitchen table, but the surgeon should not be agreeing to such terms. So there are some treatments that will require hospital admission. And if you're refusing hospital admission but would in theory accept that kind of treatment at home, the doctor is not going to accept to give it to you at home. If the treatment, however, is intravenous antibiotics, then sure, that can be done at home. It will depend on the treatment. In such cases, we negotiate. We explain alternatives, and by we, I mean both parties to the negotiation. Not just the doctor should be outlining alternatives, the patient should also be outlining alternatives, such as, for example, if I have a friend or a family member who can come and sleep here in case there needs to be someone on hand, in case things take a turn for the worse, I should explain those alternatives to my doctor as well. What can we do to make this as safe as possible and as compatible with everybody's parameters? It's a negotiation.